Hi there, my name is Lauren Rice and this is my second video for the midterm for WST 460 Women in the Body. This video is going to focus on heteronormativity. It's a mouthful, but it's also very important to understand, regardless of your sexual orientation or gender identity. Heteronormativity is defined as the belief that people fall into distinct and complementary genders, such as man and woman, with natural roles to play in life. This belief asserts that heterosexuality is the only normal sexual orientation, and that sexual and marital relations should only occur between people of the opposite sex, people of opposite sexes. A heteronormative view is one that involves the alignment of biological sex, gender identity, gender roles, and sexuality. They tie all four in together and say that you must go one way or the other. Otherwise, you are bad. So, before we go any further, I'd like to point out a fun little fact that may change your view of this video a little bit. Did you know that as of 2006, over 1,500 animal species have been documented engaging in same-sex behaviors? I find this really interesting because homosexuality is frequently coined as a sin against nature, yet it's found in nature itself over and over and over again. Of course, applying the term homosexuality to an animal species is personification. They don't have social classes, they don't have social constructs like we do, but their same-sex behavior can be defined as anything from courting to affection to sexual relations, and it happens over and over again. Something interesting is that homosexuality is very rarely found, and that is, male, male, female, female exclusive. Usually they don't really have a bias on genders, and they, do it with whoever they want, which is how the world should be. So, this reasserts my belief that homosexuality is not innately bad, but is rather socially constructed to appear bad. According to Gail Rubin, heteronormativity in mainstream society creates a sex hierarchy that separates sexual practices from morally good sex to bad sex. So at the top of this hierarchy which is known as normal, good, natural, healthy, or holy sex, is the heterosexual, married, monogamous, reproductive sex that occurs at home. At the bottom of this hierarchy, known as bad, abnormal, unnatural, sick, or sinful, is transvestites, transsexuals, fetishes, sadomasoism, sex for money, which is prostitution, and cross-generational sex, which would be two people from two different generations having sex. This leaves us with an array of sexual practices that lie in between the good and the bad, such as unmarried heterosexual couples, promiscuous heterosexuals, masturbation, long-term stable monogamous homosexual couples, bisexuals, and more. Everything else. Does anyone else see a problem here? Okay, so critics of heteronormative attitudes, such as Kathy Cohen, Michael Warner, and Lauren Berlant, argue that heteronormative attitudes are oppressive, they're stigmatizing, they're marginalizing of perceived deviant forms of sexuality and gender, and make self-expression more difficult when that expression does not conform to the norm. So, someone's going to have a very hard time expressing themselves if what they view to be themselves is also viewed by society to be bad or wrong or a sin or whatever it is. They're going to be uncomfortable being themselves, which is not good. That's not productive. That's not helping or progressing society. So, this includes lesbians, gay, bisexual, intersex, transgender, LGBTQ people, as well as others including racial minorities. Heteronormative culture privileges heterosexuality as normal and natural and fosters a climate where LGBTQ are discriminated against in marriage, luckily not anymore, but tax codes and employment. It's very obvious that heteronormativity is privilege, much like white privilege, and it's very important for heteronormative people to understand this privilege and to not condone it and to not reinforce it and to let others encourage others to express their true selves, regardless of what that is or what their personal desires in the bedroom are. So this is not to say that there is anything wrong with heterosexuality at all. But there is something wrong with heteronormativity. Why? Because what about those who do not fall within the good sex category? Why should their sexual desires be criticized and judged when it's their sexual desires? Heteronormativity can leave people feeling marginalized and alienated. It sets up this idea of us versus them, which leads to homophobia and transphobia. It prevents people from seeking out their true desires and feelings for fear that they will be labeled as bad or unnatural or abnormal. I believe that we must question whether heterosexuality is the only normal and natural or good form of sexuality. I don't think it is. Rather than labeling people and sex practices as good or bad, I think we should embrace diversity when it comes to sexuality. Up until the 19th century, the word homosexuality was used to describe sexual practices, not a sexual identity.